You were told it was a colony ship. That was the official story anyway. A grand ark designed to carry humanity to a new home. You believed it just like everyone else. The mission was one of hope. A journey to the star system Kepler 186. They called the vessel the Heritage, a name that promised a future built on the past. You walked its halls for months. You saw the hydroponic bays, you saw the cryopods and the seed banks. It all seemed so peaceful, so optimistic. But there was a place you never saw, a level deep in the ship's core. The command deck you now occupy. The lie was carefully constructed, a lie to conceal the weapon beneath your feet. This was not the Heritage. This was Project Genesis, and it was never meant to build a colony. It was built to ensure humanity's survival. It was designed to end a war before it began. You are its final component, the human element in a system of absolute power. The ship's true purpose waited for a trigger. That trigger arrived this morning. The swarm blotted out the stars. One moment there was the serene velvet of deep space. The next, it was gone, replaced by 1,000 points of hostile light. They emerged from ripple space without warning. A fleet of jagged insectoid ships. Their numbers were staggering. 1,000 ships against your one. Your long-range sensors screamed. The data flooded your console. Each enemy vessel bristled with weaponry. They were a seasoned fleet, predators of the void. They moved with a chilling, unified purpose. You stood on the bridge, this secret bridge. The rest of the colonists were still in cryo-sleep. They were dreaming of a new world. They had no idea they were the bait. You felt a cold knot tighten in your stomach. The ship's AI remained calm. Its synthesized voice was a steady presence. Threat assessment complete, it stated. Survival probability is low. You almost laughed at that. A masterclass in understatement. First impact felt like a world ending. The initial volley from the swarm was overwhelming. Not lasers or plasma. It was raw kinetic force. They fired massive slugs of dense matter, each one designed to punch through a planet's crust. You braced yourself against the command chair. The ship groaned under the assault, a deep, resonant protest from stressed metal. The lights flickered once, then held steady. Emergency klaxons remained silent. The ship was designed for this. It was expecting this. The strange, shifting plates of the hull held firm. They were not solid matter. The hull was a semi-fluid, intelligent material. It rippled under each impact. It dispersed the kinetic energy across its entire surface. It was like trying to punch water. The hammer blows landed, but the anvil simply gave way and reformed. You watched the main view screen. The enemy slugs flattened against you. They spread out like metallic paint. Then they simply fell away. Harmless. The swarm's opening salvo was spent. And you were still here. Still alive. Still whole. Your vessel began its transformation. It shed its peaceful disguise with dreadful speed. The smooth, gray hull plates retracted. They peeled back in complex geometric patterns. What they revealed was the ship's true skin. A dark, crystalline armor that drank the light. Thousands of weapon ports slid open. They moved like the hungry mouths of some star-born leviathan. Every inch of the ship became a threat. Missile tubes spiraled out from the spine. Energy projectors emerged from the flanks. The gentle colony ship was gone. In its place was a monstrosity of war. You could feel the power thrumming through the deck. The Genesis ship was awake. It was a beast roused from a long slumber. The AI's voice returned. All systems online. Offensive capabilities at 100%. It sounded pleased. You took a steadying breath. Authorize main weapon, you commanded. The ship was ready. So were you. Your first shot was not a laser. It was not a missile. It was something new, something terrifying. The ship's forward assembly parted like a steel flower. A vast emitter glowed with impossible energy. It did not hum or whine. It created a profound silence on the bridge, a pocket of dead air that stole your breath. Then came the wave. It was a distortion in space itself, a ripple of pure, focused force. It expanded outward from your ship at light speed. It was invisible to the naked eye, but its effect was immediate and devastating. The swarm's vanguard simply ceased to exist. The force wave struck their forward line. The alien ships did not explode. They were unmade. Their hulls twisted into unrecognizable shapes. Their energy cores breached in silent, brilliant flashes. The wave didn't just break them. It shattered their very atomic bonds. One moment, a wall of enemy cruisers. The next, a cloud of expanding dust and regret. You had fired a single shot, and you had erased over 100 ships. The enemy fleet actually paused. For the first time, the swarm seemed to hesitate. The enemy's hesitation was brief. It was replaced by a furious, tactical desperation. They abandoned formation. They swarmed you from all sides, a chaotic cloud of fighters and frigates. They hoped to overwhelm you with sheer numbers. They sought to find a weak point in your defenses. It was a foolish hope. Your ship's automated defenses moved like a single organism. Point defense cannons tracked thousands of targets at once. They spat fire with inhuman precision. Tiny lances of light stitched across the void. Each one found an enemy fighter. Each one turned a threat into a harmless firework. The bridge was a storm of data. You watched the tactical display. Red icons vanished as quickly as they appeared. The ship was a fortress. It was a surgeon. It carved through the enemy swarm with cold efficiency. You didn't need to give a single command. The Genesis ship knew its bloody work. It had been designed by people who understood monsters, and they had built a bigger one. They shifted tactics again. The swarm was nothing if not persistent. The larger ships stood off at a distance. They began pouring raw energy into your shields. Beams of coherent light, thick as star cruisers, lashed out. They converged on your position from every angle. It was a desperate gambit. They intended to overload your defenses, to crack you open with raw, brute power. The ship shuddered under the focused barrage. The view screen flared white with blinding energy. On your console, you watched the power gauges. The needles began to climb. 10%, 30%, 60%. The energy pouring into your shields was immense, enough to power a small star. But then you saw it. The gauges were not measuring shield strain. They were measuring power intake. The ship was not blocking the energy. It was absorbing it. The enemy was feeding you. They were sharpening the knife that would cut their own throats. You watched the power gauges climb higher and higher. The number hit 100%. Then it kept climbing. A small green light blinked on your console. It was labeled Siphon Complete. The ship did not break under the strain. It did not buckle. It did not fail. The Genesis ship was a capacitor of cosmic scale. It held the swarm's power within its core. It contained a star's worth of fury. For a moment, all was silent again. The enemy beams cut off. They must have thought they had finally broken you. Then, you unleashed their own power back at them. The ship did not fire a single beam. It simply opened its pores. The absorbed energy erupted from every point on your hull, not as a wave, but as a nova, a 360-degree blast of incandescent rage. It was their own energy, magnified, sent back with interest, the inner ring of the swarm fleet vaporized. Warships that had stood for centuries vanished in a heartbeat. Their shields were calibrated for your weapons, not for their own. The overload cascade was a perfect silent storm of destruction. The enemy's desperate gambit had cost them another 200 vessels. You had turned their greatest strength into their most profound weakness. A good day at the office, if your office was a war crime generator. The time had come to unleash the hounds. "Deploy the Furies," you ordered. Your voice was steady, colder than you expected. From hidden bays along the ship's keel, new shapes emerged. They were smaller than fighters. Sleek, dark craft with no visible cockpits. They were the hunter drones, the Furies. They did not fly like conventional ships. They moved like ghosts through the enemy fleet. Their drives left no energy signature. They slipped past the remaining pickets and sensor nets. The swarm had no idea they were there, until it was far too late. The Furies were not armed with lasers or missiles. Their purpose was more insidious. They attached themselves to the hulls of the larger alien vessels. They were leeches of steel and shadow. Once attached, they began their work. They did not explode. They simply sent a pulse, a targeted resonance frequency designed to shatter alien alloys. The effect was horrifyingly effective. The enemy's larger ships began to fall apart. Seams split wide open, engine pylons snapped, command towers sheared off and tumbled into the void. The Furies moved from target to target with relentless efficiency. They were the ship's vengeful spirits, and they were turning the swarm fleet into a graveyard. You wondered what mad genius had named them. Probably the same one who thought a colony ship needed a singularity cannon. Your focus was now on a single target, the heart of the swarm's command structure, the enemy flagship. It was a colossal vessel, twice the size of any other, a bloated, armored spider at the center of the web. It had remained at a distance, directing the battle with cold, alien logic. It was time to silence it. You directed the Furies to converge on the flagship. Dozens of the hunter drones broke off their individual attacks. They swarmed the massive command ship. At the same time, you brought your own main weapon to bear. The force wave emitter began its silent charge. The swarm flagship recognized the threat. It turned its full firepower upon you. Its shields flared, a desperate attempt to ward off the inevitable. It was not enough. The Furies latched on. Their synchronized pulse crippled the flagship's shield generators. Just as your force wave struck, the command ship cracked under the assault. It did not shatter like the others. It broke in half. The two massive sections drifted apart. The heart of their command structure fell silent. A wave of confusion washed over the enemy fleet. Their central intelligence was gone. You watched their disciplined lines break. The unity they possessed was shattered. The swarm, once a single terrifying entity, was now just a collection of ships. And they were afraid. Panic had finally taken root in the alien fleet. They had thrown everything at you. Their numbers, their power, their strategy. And you had broken it all. Some ships turned to fight. Doomed acts of final defiance. Your point defenses dispatched them with contemptuous ease. Most tried to flee. They turned their sterns to you and burned their engines for ripple space. They sought the safety of the void, the comfort of distance. They believed the battle was over. They thought you would let them go. Your orders were clear. They were burned into the mission parameters. They were a core function of the Genesis project itself. This was not a battle for territory. It was a battle for existence. You were not here to win. You were here to make a statement. Your ship did not allow them to flee. As the swarm remnants scattered, you activated the next system. A web of light erupted from your vessel. a net of tractor beams and stasis fields. It reached out across millions of kilometers. It ensnared the fleeing ships. It locked them in place. Their engines strained against an unbreakable hold. They were trapped. You were ordered to make an example of them. The AI's voice was devoid of emotion. Directive 7 is now active. Sanitize the engagement zone. You watched the main view screen. The trapped ships writhed in the energy web. They were helpless. You had the power to erase them all. A single thought, a single command. The weight of that choice settled upon you. But it was not a choice. It was a necessity. Proceed, you whispered. The ship began the final, grim task. The ship did not use its weapons. It used the net itself. The energy web tightened. It crushed the hulls of the trapped ships. It squeezed them until their reactors breached. One after another, they blossomed into silent fireballs. A constellation of death created just for you. You made yourself watch every single one. This was the price of humanity's future. It was a price paid in alien blood. When the last enemy ship was gone, a new command appeared on your console. Initiate the broadcast. The ship had recorded everything, every angle, every impact, every kill. It had edited the footage into a terrifying spectacle, a demonstration of absolute, undeniable power. You sent a message on all galactic channels. The signal was boosted by the ship's massive power core. It would reach every major star system in the sector, every faction, every government. It was your face that appeared on their screens, your voice that delivered the ultimatum. You did not shout. You did not threaten. You spoke calmly. Your words were measured, and they were absolute. You explained what the Genesis ship was. You explained why it was built. You showed them the footage of the swarm's annihilation. You told them that humanity was no longer a species to be trifled with. You gave them a simple choice: bend the knee or be broken. You finished the broadcast. Silence returned to the bridge. The message was out there. A stone dropped into the galactic pond. Now you could only wait for the ripples. The ship hung in the void, surrounded by the glittering dust of its enemies. The performance had been flawless. It was a 9 out of 10 at least, perhaps even a 10. Hard to say. You didn't have much to compare it to. This was your first galactic ultimatum after all. The response was faster than you anticipated. Reports flooded in from across the sector. Listening posts and deep space relays forwarded the chaos. The swarm was not a monolithic empire. It was a collection of subjugated races, held together by fear and the might of the flagship you had destroyed. With that might gone, the fear turned to rage. The enemy's vassal states were in open rebellion. The Gathar of the Outer Rim declared their independence. They broadcasted images of swarm overlords being overthrown. The psionic Cathar, long-thought pacifists, unleashed their mental might on their former masters. Entire garrisons went mad in an instant. The swarm's empire was not just cracking, it was crumbling. Your broadcast had been the hammer blow. It showed the galaxy that the oppressors were vulnerable. You had not just defeated a fleet, you had shattered an idea. The idea of the swarm's invincibility. Your ultimatum had given the oppressed a rallying cry. And your ship, the Genesis, was the proof that victory was possible. Factions were not just crumbling, they were collapsing into dust. You had started a fire that was now burning across the stars. You now sit in the silent command chair. The storm you unleashed rages across a dozen star systems. The bridge is quiet. The tactical displays are clear. The ghosts of the swarm are gone. All that remains is the deep, steady thrum of the Genesis ship's core. It is a sound of immense, patient power. Your ship waits for the galaxy's response. The rebellions are one answer. But there are other powers out there. Ancient empires. Cunning federations. They have heard your message. They have seen your work. They are now recalculating their understanding of humanity. They are wondering what to do about you. You are the arbiter of this new age. The human with their finger on the trigger of a god machine. Your throne is this command chair. Your kingdom is the void. The silence stretches on. The ship waits. And so do you. The next move is not yours to make. The galaxy must decide its fate. And you are the question they must answer.